Okay, so let's see who was paying attention last weekend when I celebrated the 5 o'clock Mass with you and the 10:30 Mass with some of you. How many hours are there in a week? Quick. 164? No. 64? No. 168. 168 hours in a week, huh? 168 hours in a week. Are they right, Matthew? There you go. Matthew said, just leave me alone. Okay, I'm here, right? So 168 hours in a week. And if Father Basil is doing Mass, how long does it take? Less than an hour, okay? And if Father Dan is celebrating, it's just about 1 hour. And if yours truly is celebrating, hopefully you don't have any 6 o'clock dinner appointments, right? Okay. A little bit longer for me. But what we were talking about and what we will be talking about for the next is that what we do here to nurture ourselves, to grow in our faith, to grow in our sense of what it means to be part of God's Catholic Christian family. Because as Catholics, we are a communal religion. We find our identity in the context of community. We come to know who we are by gathering together. What we do here, though, is a very small part of our lives. As a matter of fact, most of us spend 160 to maybe 166 hours of the week outside. There are some parishioners who come to daily Mass or come to Mass once in a while during the week, so they spend a little bit more time in church with the community. But most of us live outside of these walls. That means that we live our faith outside of these walls. And so what we're inviting you to think about, Father Dan, Father, and myself, is how do we put our faith to work? How do we connect what we do here with our lives out there? Because the vast majority of you spend most of your waking hours doing some type of work. And I don't just mean those of you who have professions or are actively involved in professions, those of you who are retired, those of you who are parents and are raising children, that's work. Those of you who are in school, that's. So how do we make the connection? I was thinking about it this week, and I thought that that the best way to look at this is, why is it difficult for us to make those connections? What happens that we don't see the connection between this experience and our daily lives? And for many of us, because we've been taught to compartmentalize our lives, we see ourselves wearing different hats depending on what we have to do. But there's one hat we're all wear, and that's the hat of our faith. We're all called to wear that hat in everything that we do. That we aren't Christians, we aren't Catholic Christians while we're here on a Saturday night or a Sunday morning. But we're called to be Catholic Christians everywhere, every day of our lives. And the only way we can do that is with intentionality. We have to see that as part of who we are. I had the benefit earlier today of having a retreat for those of us who are part of the pastoral staff. And one of the staff members, I think, really nailed it. She says, we have identities. That for those of us who are older Catholics, our Catholic identity was a significant part of who we were. Someone asked you who you were, you might have said, well, I'm Irish, but you would have said, I'm Irish Catholic. I'm Italian Catholic. Our identity, our faith, was a significant part of our identity. Am I right? Those of us who are older? Gosh, to put myself in the category with Larry Soletti and Larry Callahan, those of us who are older. Yes, okay?
I thought you were going to say those of us who are Irish Catholics.
No, well, no. Well, I was raised as an Irish Catholic, but Larry would take great offense. At Irish Catholic. What I'm getting at, though, is that our younger ones, I would say that Gabriel and Anna and some of our younger brothers and sisters would not necessarily, if someone asked you, who are you, would not necessarily say, well, I'm Catholic. Unless someone said, who do you belong to? So their world is different, and our world is different too, huh? Larry worked in the airline business. This Larry here worked as an attorney. How did your faith impact your work? How did you make yourself conscious of the fact that that hat that you wear, you're supposed to wear every day of your lives? How do we do that? This is what I suggest, that we need reminders. We need ways to keep ourselves mindful of. Every time I celebrate Mass, I get to proclaim the gospel. And when I come to the altar, you might not know it, but I'm saying a prayer. And I say a version of that prayer when I'm at the ambo. And this is what I'm saying. I bend over and I say, Lord, be in my thoughts and on my lips and in my heart, so that all that I think, say, and do is done in your name. And when I approach the ambo and I say, the Lord be with you, and you say, or you can say, also with you. We're going to sneak back to that here at Corpus Christi. And I say, a reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. What do? We're saying, Lord, be in our thoughts, on our lips, and in our hearts, so that all that we think, say, and do is done in your name. That's a real short prayer. That's a prayer you could say on the way to work. That's a prayer that you can say as you're getting out of bed. That's a prayer that you can say as you're dropping your kids off at school, or you're taking your spouse to a medical appointment, or you're getting ready to do your homework. And by doing those little things, we keep ourselves mindful of who we are and the fact that we have a hat that we wear wherever we are. That hat is the hat of our faith. We said that we want to do something else during these 4 weeks. Actually, it's 5 Sundays of October. So last week, I shared with you that you're going to find in each of our bulletins an insert that invites you to look at various aspects of our lives and how we integrate our faith with our lives, with our life work, whether it's our work at home, our work at school, our work in the workplace. And I think if you were to go online, you will find that there's some very interesting, some very thought-provoking little bits of information in a minute and a half or 2 minutes, people talking about how they're connecting their lives with their work. I was just real quickly, this is a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King. It reads, even if it falls on your lot to be a street sweeper, go out and sweep streets like Michelangelo painted pictures. Sweep streets like Handel or Beethoven composed music. Sweep streets like Shakespeare wrote poetry. Sweep streets so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth will have to pause and say, here lived a great street sweeper who swept his job well. The dignity that we bring to our work is what makes our work dignified. We don't become dignified because of what we do. We're dignified already because of who we are. And if we bring that dignity, that awareness, that sense of our faith to our work, no matter what we're doing, it can make a difference. Some of you have very competitive jobs. Some of you have the challenge of living your faith consistently in a workplace that requires that you maybe look at things purely from the bottom line. How do you do that? When you have responsibilities, mortgages to pay and children to raise and tuitions to pay for, how do you do that? Well, we're going to offer you an opportunity to talk to other people that have some of those same questions. Some of you are dealing with the aging process. How do you deal with getting older and not losing a sense of your own having to deal with the loss of your own independence, having to depend upon others, having to take care of others. How do you do that? Well, over the next 5 weeks, parishioners are invited to come together in small faith-sharing groups to talk about your lives, to talk about how you can better your faith experience with your work experience. It's going to be 5 hours, an hour each week for a 5-week period of time. Last week I shared this with the parishioners along with Father Dan and Father Basil, and we had about 50 parishioners. We were really surprised. We had about 50 parishioners who signed up for it. Some who are retired, some who are raising children, some who are unemployed, some who are working outside in various professions. But they all saw the benefit in spending an hour a week with other people who have some of the same questions that